Hey guys, this is Nevis here. It's been a really long time since we've done a dungeon guide video for beginners, but here we are doing a dungeon guide video for Banished Cells I. Now, as always with these videos, we do not have any CP put in. For those of you who aren't familiar with the acronyms yet, CP means champion points, basically bonus points where you put into certain stats to boost your resistances, your mitigation, your damage, pretty much everything. So here we are in Banished Cells I. For this video, I've decided to tank because Banished Cells I is surprisingly a little bit more difficult to handle in terms of handling the trash, the mobs. It's similar in numbers to Fungal Grotto or even Wraith, but the adds in here hit a little bit harder, probably because your physical resistances as a tank will typically be lower than your spell resistance, regardless of class, unless you want to build for more physical resistance with your gear. So here we are, we're approaching the first boss of Banished Cells I. There's a lot of skeletons, lots of spooky old bones trying to kill us. And our first boss is a Wraith. Not a very difficult boss, even without CP. It's basically a boss that channels onto a target and drains them, and that can be very easily healed through, as you can see here, even without CP. And as a tank, you just want to point it away from the group because it does an interruptible ability that sends out a nice path, which can hurt, I guess, depending on how much health your group has. So we're just going to be pretty much watching this fight go on, and how long this boss fight lasts, obviously it lasts depending on your group damage, which can be low if you are new to the game or playing with people who are new to the game. So again, we notice a few Daedric elements with these undead skeletons, and if you want to follow the lore of this dungeon, definitely stay behind and listen to what the NPCs are talking about. It's actually a pretty interesting story. For this room, there's gonna be two sets of trash. The first wave of skeletons, they hit pretty hard, actually, especially the archers. You want to draw them in as soon as possible and apply minor maim if you're the tank. If you're a DPS, try not to round on too much, just like that, or you might not have the tank be able to taunt a few things. If you're the healer, try your best with those stupid tanks and DPS that just take too much damage, I guess. So as you notice, I pressed the button before this. That button doesn't really do anything until you kill the adds. The second button pressed will release a wave of Bankin. Now the problem we had here was two of the people didn't really go for the buttons at the same time, triggering the Bankin early on. You can do that. So, and here we are with the second boss of Banished Cells I. It's basically Shadow Ren. It's basically Clan Fear. Doesn't do really anything special, just summons a shadow ad of its own. You just want to hold still as a tank. If you're a DPS, just buff the DPS. I mean, if you're a healer, just buff the DPS, and if you're the DPS, try not to get caught in that big red AoE. It's a very delayed tail sweep, so the telegraph will show before the action is actually done. So as you can see here, telegraph shows, and then he actually does the animation for it. So you have plenty of time to get out of it. And again, that was a pretty easy boss. This dungeon is more known for its trash, so we're just going to be looking at how we handle things as a group here. More spooky skeletons. Ooh. But yeah, next boss, the third boss, is again nothing really special compared to the first two bosses we've seen so far. It's basically a fire priest. You don't want it to point towards the group. If you're tanking it, you can interrupt its fire line animation so you don't get a fire line out towards the group. If you're the DPS, quickly cleave down the adds with the boss. If you're the healer, do your normal thing, keep up the heals, and there's interruptible we see. And again, nothing really too special. And you want to just keep going. And again, if you want to listen to the story of this dungeon, definitely stay behind and listen to it. Very interesting. So this hallway is actually fairly difficult for some of the new tanks. It's actually a few adds. Definitely, if you're new to tanking in ESO in general, you want to prioritize single taunts on the elite adds, the clan figures, the guy with the two-hander, the one-hander. If you are a Dragon Knight, definitely chain things like that. Or if you're other classes, you do have other crowd control alternatives, like the Fighters Guild ability Leash, or if you're Warden, Frozen Gate, etc., etc. And our fourth and next boss is the Skeletal Colossus here. It's again not a huge challenge, and it's not meant to be, obviously, because this used to be the normal version of Banished Cells before they switched it over to Banished Cells I and included a vet version of it. It's basically more health, a bit more damage, as opposed to back then, but still, even without too much CP or no CP at all, you can still get by fairly easily. As a tank, you definitely don't want to stand in unnecessary AoEs like that one, and you just DPS it down. Obviously, don't turn its cone towards the group. The healer will do his or her job, and the DPS will kill it eventually. And again, this is a fairly difficult trash pull too, if you're going to pull both sides at once. Typically most groups here with pug groups just pull the right side first, kill that, then they pull this side, as you can see. And before you go on, definitely kill the clan fear if you want to, and if you don't want to, you can just pull the next trash too. It shouldn't be threatening, because the next trash does not all aggro on you if you pull one of them. As you can see, I have to chain in some things that are on standby. In this game, there's trash that are connected to each other, so if you pull one, the rest typically follow, not for this one. So it should be safe enough for you to pull one. And this will be our last trash pull before the final boss of Banished Cells I. Just more spooky skeletons, some weird Daedric elements, and clan fear too. And obviously, you just want to pull it all and DPS and everything down. Alright, and make sure before you pull the boss to read the scroll for Hardman, because there'd be no point in aggroing the boss and dying, and then just reading the scroll again if you are going for a no-death achievement or something of the like. Now, the boss does not move around unless you move as a tank, so you're going to keep him in one spot. A lot of groups like to hold him here or somewhere else further away so the orbs don't touch him if the group DPS is low or if the cleave is low. And he does this really interesting heavy attack. He just summons an orb in his hand and just launches it very fast, very hard to see at a random group member. It can be you, it can be the healer, it can be a DPS. You see him do it multiple times throughout the dungeon. He typically does it after a heavy attack or right after the fires start spawning. So right there, as you can see, the heavy attack caught someone off guard. So yeah, he typically does it after this heavy attack or during fire phase. And for fire phase, you don't have to keep moving around out of fire because it keeps spawning on you. You can just stand still in one spot, and if there's more than one or two spawning on you like this, you can just stand still for a second, let them stack, instead of running around everywhere and having it spread. And here we, as a tank, didn't block that one. It's got knocked back. We're repositioning it, and the DPS are continuing it. And we're gonna watch out for heavy attack here pretty soon. Oh, there we go. And the fires are spawning, so he will not do a heavy attack for a while. The one way to survive those heavy attacks, for the group, a lot of groups have trouble with it, is make sure that as a tank you apply minor maim You don't need anything too special like weakening enchants. As a healer, make sure you have combat prayer up on the DPS and yourself for the minor ward, minor resolve, more mitigation. And if you do happen to spot it, dodge roll or block the heavy attack. And that's it. Congratulations on clearing Banished Cells 1. If you guys have any questions or suggestions down, let me know down in the comments below. But yeah, that's pretty much the entire dungeon. See you guys next time in the next video.
Everything changes.